Hi, Mermaid Junkies, dear friends. Okay, yes, I wanted to share this little video with you because I feel like I am on the brink of some expansion happening, and I wanted to share it with you because I think it's vitally important. And I also think that I'm just super excited about discovering this about myself. And you guys know how I'm always working on trying to, you know, make myself better and learning all of these different things. And so I just really wanted to jump on here really quick and share this experience with you that I recognized about myself. Maybe also it might clarify some things for you in your life as well, in case you may have something that you're experiencing, and this may be a particular avenue that you could recognize yourself in my example, in my story. So if you're new here, following along with me as I experience life in general, and I'm on my own spiritual voyage, and I have been for many years. I use my experiences as a professional mermaid. I'm retired now from Weeki Wachee Springs, but that is where I originally got my first job at the age of 17, and I've been basically a professional mermaid for 30 plus years. So I use my personal spiritual voyage, that's my chickens in the background if you can hear them, as a way to inspire women to create a life that they love, through giving metaphors as being a mermaid. You know, my spiritual journey, I always call it my transformational tale, or my transformational voyage. Spiritual journey, I always call it my transformational tale, or my transformational voyage. So, okay, so what I discovered is, and I know that many of you that are my friends that follow along on my Instagram or my blog know that I speak a lot about current things, and I also speak about things that are really like not troubling waters, but in a sense, I mean, if I'm being completely transparent and honest with you, which I am, I always try to be that way with you, is that I'm always trying to fine tune things in my life and trying to figure out like what creates this visceral reaction within me if I don't have a lot of Instagram followers, or if I lose a lot of people on Patreon, or I lose a lot of my subscribers on YouTube, or why money and success eludes me, and I know everything is law of attraction based, right? Or just like in general anything. So lately that has been on my table of contents with regards to wanting to understand what is going on with me, and as far as like the success of my little storybook, and how I have all of these books in queue that I want to write, that I am writing. I'm currently writing 3 of the books now. So obviously the one that's my transformational tale is autobiographical, and so that I think I'm like 40,000 words into that one, but I'm switching off, when the mood strikes, or when I'm become, super inspired, that's when I'll take action on those things. But anyway, so some of the things that have been really me trying to really figure out, you guys, is my hair is a mess. I just washed it, and so when I just wash my hair, it becomes very unmanageable. Do you guys have hair like that? Like if it's dirty, it's almost like it's better because you're able to work with it more. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but so okay, so this is what I had been struggling with, and I recognize, really clearly today after meditation, is that as we're growing up, right, there's so many things that influence our the behaviors that we adapt and take on as like an identity for ourselves. We adapt from belief systems that we have been given, or not given, but we're kind of like taught these things, right? We're conditioned into believing particular beliefs, and that's what creates a belief in us. And it could not be true, or it could be true, but it's always true within regards to us, because if we believe it, that's what we believe to be true, right? And we all know that if we practice the law of attraction, well, and I practice like Abraham Hicks teachings only, is that when we have a belief, it's just a thought that we've thought over and over and over and over again, and it created a belief within us. So let me get personal with you and be transparent. So my entire life, I have always found that there's two things or a couple of things that stem from my self-worthiness. Now, when I say issues, which I try not to do that, because when we're using verbiage like that, it's really not enhancing, it's only solidifying more clearly a belief that we may not believe in, but we keep saying it, so it becomes that way, more of a hiccup, in our lives. And so what I've noticed that anytime in life I've ever been frustrated, or I get agitated with feeling like dissed, or somebody didn't show me attention, or I don't feel significant to someone, or I feel very, very unloved, stems from a couple of things. And now this isn't my own personal thing, but you can kind of use this as you're jumping off to recognizing where your beliefs lie and what causes you to have these visceral reactions with regards to these particular beliefs that come up, right? When they bubble up, you'll start to understand and put two and two together. So I noticed that like a couple of months ago, remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but I have done like all these videos about Instagram, and I don't know why that became such a fascination for me, because we're humans and we tend to like lock onto something and we don't let go of it. Like we fight until we drag it to the ground and kill it. And so what was really bothering me is that I felt like I don't understand, and still to this day I don't, but I've released that and relinquished it, because I know that it's not a good belief that I have, right? So I'm trying to retrain myself into a new belief system. But for the longest time, and I've even done blog posts on it and lots of videos about Instagram followers and why whatever, and I'm just like thinking to myself many times, why is it that this bothers me so much? And then when I would hear people say, oh, well, it's not about the numbers, but they're sitting at 4.3 million. And it's like, but it's not about the numbers. It's easy for you to say. That's what in my mind, what I would say to them is in my mind, I would say, oh yeah, it's easy for you to say because you're sitting at 4.3 million followers. So of course it doesn't mean anything to you. But somebody that has like 500, which I did, is like, that weighs on me a little bit more. But I couldn't understand why this was bothering me so freaking much. And I'm like, it's a stupid app. Why is it causing me such angst in my spirit? Why is it bothering me so much? And then I think, okay, I'm not going to dismiss it and just ignore it, because the things that you continually put off, right, and you perpetuate, it makes them bigger, right? That's how law of attraction works. So if you think, oh, well, that's not happening to me, and you think you can ignore something, and you're like, I'm just not going to pay attention to that or whatever, the more there's two sides of the stick. So the more that you say you're not going to do something, the more you're activating the other end of the stick, right? Because it's a two-sided stick. So I would aggravate that more. And I'm like, okay, but I want to understand why. Why is it bothering me so much, right? The other thing that I wanted to figure out is the financial abundance. I'm like, okay, it didn't become everything that happens with any person individually always goes back to what stimulates their growth and what also causes people to be driven, right? So everybody's is different. Some people feel significant, and if someone gives them, someone follows them on Instagram, or someone signs up for their email newsletter, or someone buys my book, or whatever. I'm just trying to give examples, but I couldn't understand why the wealth and abundance bothered me. Like if I felt like I was being shied from, or I was being like kind of pushed aside because I don't have the financial abundance yet, right? or I don't have the numbers. So everything externally has always played such a massive part in my life as far as feeling that I am a person of significance. Now, that is ruled by so many different things and different subtitles for people in life, right? Yours could be if you have a really good relationship with your mother, that can stimulate you into feeling significant or loved, right? Whereas mine, I recognized, stems from my childhood, which all of our beliefs stem from growing up the certain way that we did, right? In the circumstances of our environment, the way that we were conditioned from whoever raised us. And we gather all of those little conditioned beliefs from our parents or our siblings or our cousins or our grandmas and grandpas, or just whoever's in our circumference of influence. As a little girl, this is what I've really recognized. As a little girl, in order for me to feel love, right? Because that causes us to do everything that we do in life. That ultimately drives a human behavior. And I couldn't figure out, anyway, so basically what I did is figure out that the reason that the Instagram thing was bothering me so much, and the wealth of me having wealth like now, that I relate it to feeling like I did when I was a little girl. The thing that I recognized when I was young, and my parents didn't intentionally do this. People don't do this knowingly. They do it without any regards to really recognizing what they're doing. They don't know. I mean, I did a lot of things probably in creative beliefs and conditioned beliefs within my own children that they will have to fine tune and figure out to navigate through as they grow. And that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of learning about yourself, right? But what I learned was when I was little, so I grew up in a small town, and so I had always felt like, and I think this is derivative of my parents, mostly my father's side of the family, not necessarily so much my mother's side. And I didn't discover this until the other day I was speaking with my mother. Now, as you guys know, I'm on the fast track to becoming closer with my parents again, and figuring out and working through all of those, contrasting moments with regards to what happened when my dad took the truck, and how I've distanced myself from my family, and most particularly my mom and dad, and didn't talk to them for almost a year. And I still have only verbally spoken to my father on the phone, which after Thanksgiving, I plan to go down there and have, a heart-to-heart, father talk with him. But, anyway, so aside from that, I have really been trying to, talk with my mother about understanding things in our behavior and in our relationship and growing from those experiences. And so I'm always into the growth aspect of learning about my life and how I can become a better woman. So I was talking to her the other day, and I realized it just dawned on me. And I don't know what triggered it exactly. I can't remember exactly what triggered it. But I think what it was is, anyway, what I learned was this, is that in my little hometown, like I said, I come from, it's a small town, but my family, my father's side of the family, I have always felt like when I was a little girl, and this probably wasn't, like I said, an intentional thing, but I always felt like who I am, my last name, puts significant value on the person that I am. That it's almost like this haughty sense of like attitude of I'm better than you because of who I am, because I'm a Carter, right? And so that was never that way for my mother's side of the family. I always felt like if I was considered a Carter, which I am, right? I can't ever get away from that, which I love that part of me. I always felt like, and it's a made up belief, but I was always conditioned to believe like do you know who I am? We're a Carter, so we're like significantly important. And that may just be a facade of something that my parents or my dad's side of the family kind of like exuded onto us as an external like front. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because that doesn't mean that I'm a Carter doesn't mean you have all of that self-confidence behind that. It could be a facade. Most of the time it is, especially when you're dealing with insecure people, but they use external things, right? Wealth, prominence, financial abundance, popularity, all these different external things as a way and as a means to make up the difference when you feel insecure as a person. Am I making any sense here? It totally makes sense to me, because I always felt like, but I'm a Carter, right? And so my mother's side of, my maternal side of the family was always, if I was considered, that a part of that side of the family, like I have, the bishop or the Mott side of the family, or the, that side of the family, that I was meek and humble and Christ-like and forgiving and a good girl, right? But if I was considered the other part of me, which I am a Carter, is that I'm haughty, arrogant, self-indulgent, selfish, all of that. I mean, just everything negative, okay? That it's like, who do you think you are? And here's the thing, in life, we all are significant. Like, we should all have that attitude, no matter what our last name is, that it's like, don't you know who I am? And the sheer reason for that is because our self-worth should come from the fact that we are of divinity, that we are of God-like matter, okay? We have spirits and souls of God. And so, yes, we should be haughty. But people define that and they take on these labels as if that's what you are, because you are labeled that. And that's not truth. That is just a belief that we have created in our lives, or we adapted and adopted those from our parents. And that doesn't mean that it's true. You can say, because basically what that told me in my mind, and I'm getting to the whole point of where I discovered this, is that why the Instagram or why the YouTube subscription followers, or why the external upside of that is like, you are more significant, you are a better person, you mean more in life if you have status, if you're popular, if you come from a well-to-do family that has lots of wealth and abundance. It doesn't matter if that's not really true. What it appears to be is what matters. That's why, once again, I'm learning that everything, so many times in culture, people put on labels and they mask what's really going on underneath. Do you know what I mean? And that's the whole concept that I have of being a mermaid, is that everything, you can look the part. You can wear the pretty tail. You can have the gorgeous locks of hair, the right color, beautiful skin, appear that, I'm going to say only beautiful words are going to come from my mouth and lips, right? But if that's not really you, you're playing a part. You're not really that person. And people don't know how to accept. Sorry, I was pulling my little shawl. But people don't know how to break down the fact that everything we've been taught doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly the way life is. It's very subjective. Everybody has a paradigm, the way that they have subjectively decided to view their lives. You might view someone that you see all of that, and you directly make an assumption about that person, right? So like, you see everything from the outside. For instance, I'm going to use my own experience in life, is that I felt love, especially from from my father. Because, if we don't get things in life and in childhood, we always strive for the rest of our freaking lives to get that externally. However we get it is however we get it. We will do anything to receive that type of love, to feel love, right? So whatever it moves you and motivates you is how you're going to get it. So, because I never received my father's love, right? Unless I was married to an ex that was a celebrity. I mean, he wasn't like a Tom Cruise celebrity, but we had wealth and abundance. Everything from the external perspective appeared well. Do you see what I'm saying? So I received accolades, adoration, love, acceptance, and all that kind of shit, all that kind of stuff from my dad or my dad's side of the family. Now, when I left my marriage, let me just remind you that my entire side of my dad's family, which that is what it's very much always been as far as I've grown up on that side of the family, which was, and what I told you previously, is that my mom's side was the good side, the angelic. It's almost like Jekyll and Hyde. My mom said that, and when she said that and we were having a conversation, I thought, that's really, and no offense to her, we were just kind of, flushing through stuff as to why we believe what we believe and where did that come from, and I don't understand this or whatever. And she literally said Jekyll and Hyde, and I'm thinking, so if I'm a Carter, I'm a monstrosity, right? I'm a monster. I'm considered a monster if I attach myself to that side of the family, because everything that appears externally is that the girls, most particularly my aunts or my aunt, not necessarily my uncles so much, not really, but my grandmother, my, my father's mother, right, is that everything was about wealth. Everything was about how much money you can make, how much money do you have, how much are you sitting on, how much equity do you have, how much assets do you have, okay, where do you live, what does your house look like, what do you drive, who are you engaged with, like as far as like relationships, right? And if you happened upon, a guy of wealth, well, then you're in the club. You're in the secret club, right? And so let me just tell you that when my ex and I divorced and I left and I was like squat nothing, surfing on my parents' couch, whatever, is that I've got the biggest drawback from my dad's sisters. And it's like, and it just solidified more clearly that belief that it was like, yeah, I mean, because if you look for the truth and you believe something, you will find that belief, right? It's law of attraction. Everything that you were saying, you will attract that. And so I had that belief system for all of those years, right? So they actually solidified that, yeah, that belief is actually true, because my Aunt Gilly, my Aunt Franny, my Aunt Maggie, my Aunt Annette, they all lingered, and like they're still Facebook friends with my ex and not me. Like somehow I'm just this disgruntled niece that is just a horrible, wretched person because I call them on their shit. And I think that's the other thing, is that once I am a Carter, and I'm never going to get away from that. I love my name. And that's, I want to do a whole nother post about names and what the significance of those are, because I think that I found a lot of people that actually want to dive deeper into that, understanding like surnames and things like that are heredity, and so actually that really was a very difficult thing for me. And so I associated these last couple of years of me, like when the things went awry with my father and then things went awry with my mom, because I finally felt like that I wanted things to change, especially in my life, but I wanted things to be seen differently. Like that I'm not this person that everybody's put a label on. You can put a label on me and say, well, Raquel is this way, and Raquel is that way, and Raquel is this. But the only reason that you want to say that, or anybody would want to say that about me, is because people don't like when people change. And especially if you're not willing to grow and expand yourself, you're going to see other people that are expanding and growing. You have to be able to mentally, it's a human behavior, and I don't hold it against anyone, but it's human nature for you to box someone in and put them in a box and label them as such, because that makes you feel better. Because if you can't have control over what people are doing and how people are influencing and how things are changing, because we think, oh, well, things are changing or whatever, and people don't like, a lot of times people don't like change. Especially if you're not wanting to change. You know what I mean? You're going to fight against it. And so when you see other people doing something that you're not comfortable with, you have to define them in some way, because that makes you feel better. That makes you more comforted in your own box. Do you see what I'm saying? And so when someone tries to crawl out of that box and they're changing things up and they're making you like see things like you might be given a little stimulated thought, like, oh, well, I wonder if I looked at that differently, like Raquel, that if that makes you uneasy and it causes a visceral reaction within you, it's going to make you angry, for one. Second of all, you don't know how to handle it, so you're not capable of knowing how do I navigate through this, what is happening. You don't really understand it. And so the best way to fix that, right, to put it in a pretty package and bundle it all up and put it back on the shelf, is to label someone, to put a label back on them and say, this is where you belong. And it comes from a need and a desire when you grow up, especially in a religious home. It comes from a need of wanting to control. And if you lose control, and you don't know how to handle not being in control. And the reason for this is, I can only relate it to my own personal experience, is that when I grew up in a very dysfunctional household, which means my dad was an alcoholic. You know, he is a recovering alcoholic as of like 30 plus years now. But that doesn't mean that just because the behavior stops, that the belief system is still not in there going strong. And so if I can do anything to try and promote someone to understand and recognize something that is actually going on in their life, is very beneficial. This is another thing that I'm going to swim back to. And the reason that I so desire to influence, because I am a teacher, and most people are teachers, but they maybe haven't found the right avenue of how they want to teach or whatever. But everyone's teachers. It's our desire as humans to want to teach, right? But the reason that my significance lies within me wanting to teach is because, once again, and this is not me like, oh, I'm a victim, this is why I'm the way I am. I'm saying this as a growth mechanism for us to understand why people do what they do. What causes a person that comes from the same household to be completely like me, very open and transparent and making waves which some people perceive to be making waves all the time, whereas some people is meek and mild and humble and very quiet, and they don't want to, but they come from the same family. Their parents are exactly the same. They raised them exactly the same way. But this is why human behavior is significant when you really understand that it's your life experience that teaches you. You can't learn from your sibling. You can't learn from your sister. Just because you grew up in the same house, that doesn't equate for you being exactly the same. We all know this, we all know this. And so the other reason that my significance lies in me wanting to teach so drastically is because, like I said, I'm not a victim, but it's because when I was younger, and I don't know why it made such an impact on me, but I was told, and I don't know if it's because I had red hair, that I was considered ugly, disproportionate, unattractive. No boys are ever going to like me. I'd rather be dead than red on the head. And you think that stuff doesn't impact somebody. And it actually, every little thing impacts somebody to a degree, which formulates how they are and how they become as a person. So what it did to me is it significantly played a part in me feeling that I was stupid, dumb, no one wanted to listen to me, no one would pay attention to me because of what I looked like, because of how I was. And that is why it's so significant, because that created a stimulus response in me to want to teach people and for people to know, you know what? That's a stereotype. Just because I was taught that belief system that because you're ugly, no one wants to listen to you, Raquel, it created a stimulus response in me to want to teach people, to say, no, that's actually a belief system that's totally a farce. That's not true in the least. And so that's why I strive on knowledge. That's why I strive on education. You will never find me without reading 5 to 10 books at a time and still doing research. I mean, my mind never shuts off. And it's not because like I'm trying to overcome this sense of belief or whatever, but I know where it comes from. I know where it is derivative of. And so when we can understand why we do what we do, makes a massive difference in, will we continually do that? Do we desire not to change, or do we just desire to understand? Because once you understand something, then that makes way. It parts the waters for growing and learning. And the only way that we can experience that is through experience, life experience. That's the only thing that teaches us. So those are the things that I have learned. I have learned why it was so significant for me for social media. Why it's so significant for me to have a lot of money. Because that was a belief within me when I was a little girl, that if you had money, clout, status, notoriety, you were significant. You got love, Raquel. People are going to love you because of this. Now, I know that's not true, but that still doesn't keep me from doing it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I have to create a new belief that says a number doesn't make you, Raquel. Your checking account balance, I don't care if you're a millionaire or a gazillionaire or you have not a pot to piss in, that doesn't make you significant. That doesn't make you more of a better person than Joe Schmo down the street, Mary that lives in Connecticut. It doesn't matter. And so, I mean, if anything, this is a self-indulgent video because I'm learning all this stuff. And then when I can play it back and listen to myself, like either on the podcast or listen to it and watch it on this video, it clarifies to me so much of an understanding of why I've been in pursuit of these things that are externally driven that make no significance within me identifying whether or not I'm a good person or not. But that's one of the things that I wanted you to recognize and learn, is that not necessarily learn like, oh, I'm a God and I'm sitting up here and I'm smarter than you. No, all you have to do is ask God, source, what you desire in your life to understand, and you will clearly get the answers. And that's exactly how I got the answer, was talking to my mom on the phone, which stimulated me this kind of like fleshing out this understanding of, oh, that's why I had that belief system, is that because I felt, if you're rich, Raquel, everyone's going to like you. Raquel, if you're rich, people are going to give you attention and they're going to show you and shower you with love. Like I said, it was a very coming to Jesus moment for me, and I'm really happy about that. It made me so excited because I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. And so anyway, so now I get it. But I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to, maybe it will, catapult you into recognizing something about yourself, like, oh, why do I need to shop? What kind of need am I trying to fulfill? Or I don't care. I mean, because there's some people that are completely driven by something the opposite, right? Like maybe they have a belief system about money, and if you show any signs of money, right? Some people will subconsciously eliminate themselves from having money because they have the disadvantage of a belief system surrounding money. So whereas somebody will look at me now and say, oh, Raquel wants to be rich, and that's haughty, that's ungodlike, because they have a bad belief system about money in regards to themselves, right? And so what we have to do is flip that on its tail, so to speak, in a metaphorical term, and really look at it from a different perspective. That just because you have a belief doesn't mean it can't ever be changed, right? And just because you have a belief about something doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually a true belief. It could stem from your mama's, or it could stem from, like I said, it could stem from your father that inadvertently didn't know he was teaching you that through his actions and experiences in life as you're, being the child in a family. And so therefore you begin to have these disillusioned ideas about who you are as a person because you've attached it to a belief. You've attached your significance as a person, to a belief that isn't necessarily true. And click the subscribe button if you would like to. And like I said, I'm always here to try and inspire us to expand and to learn more about ourselves and to grow and to just create lives that we love. Like, we love living our own life, and we're so happy about where we are, and we can in turn be happy for where other people are in their lives. Continue on and follow me along with this voyage that I'm on. And I want to hear all about your voyage as well, because we're all learning from each other. The only way we can learn from each other is through life experience and recognizing, like, oh my gosh, I totally understand this, or I recognize this about myself. And I love to hear stuff like that because, for one thing, it helps me to understand more clearly when I'm writing my book as to where us as women are collectively coming together to recognize that we all have this thing in likeness with one another, right? We all are so much more alike than we think we are. I hope this served you. And as always, most affably yours till my next swim. Ciao.